time, finally. So what everybody wants to know is, when are the kits going to start shipping? And I can honestly say I've been holding off on ETAs on purpose for all my kits for as long as I can remember, because ETAs are always wrong. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be some unexpected delay, and it pushes everything back. And having an ETA and then failing to meet that deadline just pisses people off even more. So I try to stay away from it. A lot of people seem to have thought that I said it was going to be 2 to 4 months. I don't think I ever said that. I think there is a part on the pre-order details page that says 2 to 4 months, but that's really based on kits that are in production and pre-ordering and shipping on a regular basis, like high definition, ultra HDMI, etc. This one is a lot different because of the 3D printed parts and just because it's a new kit. And that was really the 2 to 4 months actually was more like 2 to 4 months between us sending the money to the PCB fab and getting PCBs back from them. That takes 2 to 4 months, and it did. The delays since then have been somewhat on Woozle's end with the main boards, getting them programmed and sent up to me. I'm actually going to be doing final testing. We showed a box of these, so I have a small batch here that I'm going to be doing final testing on, and then I can start shipping. So I can say for sure shipping is going to start probably next week. However, I will say it's really going to be the LCD orders, because I have all of those parts here now and I can ship them. What I don't have is everybody's 3D printed parts for the full case. Really, that has just begun. And what I have here on hand is just more of a sample, but I believe the samples are good enough to actually ship. And I have a few plexis that we haven't been able to show off before. But I wanted to tell everybody that a lot of this redesign of the full case happened because of review videos that have been done by the likes of Metal Jesus Rocks, etc. And Woozle, read all the comments, and there was a lot of negative comments about the design. And it was Woozle's first time learning how to even do the CAD design for the 3D printing and all that stuff. So you got to give him a little bit of leeway there. But I believe he has hit it out of the park with this redesign. I really do. I believe everybody's going to be much, much happier with everything that's happened with it. Okay, so the redesign. Big changes. But the first one that you'll notice is the power switch. This is what it used to look like. We have veered away from that. Or I should say Woozle has veered away from that. And this is the latest design. And this push button instead of a toggle. And we got a lot of hate for this toggle, but that was actually a very expensive, very robust switch. And in fact, the body of this switch is exactly the same as the body of this one. And they are meant to last. So if you look down in here, this is actually a prototype right here. It varies a little bit, as in there was not meant to be a printed cap. We were just going to use the original black cap with it, like that. However, that meant that you had to hold that nut down with tweezers and try to actually screw in using the back of the switch back in there. And I just didn't like it. I didn't think it would go over well. So the hole was enlarged so that we could get a socket down in that hole, in that well, to actually tighten down that nut from the outside. So you do that, and then you press this cap on, and that's what happened. Woozle also added, if you can see the hole right there, right next to it, that is for an LED. So we got a power LED hole now. And what we'll do is solder on this power PCB. I've got it sitting incorrectly, but it'll sit in there like that. And now that we can tighten down that front nut from the outside, So you can actually insert all this pre-soldered, which is nice. So the PCB sits there like that, and you'll have an LED sitting there. I'll try to show that later. I've still got to mock some of those up. And something else that he pointed out to me, which I hadn't really noticed, but on the newer revs, like this one, let me find a good solid color. Here we go. There is actually a little bit of a hole. You can probably see that little slit right there. Because we enlarged that hole, there's a little slit right there that comes, so light can actually enter. It's not why it's there, but light can get through that hole and into the power switch hole. So I'm sitting there thinking, you know, most people will end up with a collar matching cap like so. However, if you have a solid collar like this, and I think this particular gray that Woozle printed actually shows a red LED through it fairly well, but I'm thinking maybe some of them won't show light. So what we could do is print a translucent cap like so, which would probably let light through a lot better than these solid colors right here. But you know, this little area right here is pretty thin, so it might be okay on most of them. I was just thinking that would be a really good thing to be able to do there. So the other major design change is the fact that it's a one-piece unit now. This is significant in that assembly will be so much easier now. It's crazy. These 8 screws right here, I think there's only 7 sitting here, but there's 8 screws of this size. That's the only screws in the kit now. Where before we had these huge screws holding together the 2 pieces and the plexiglass and the bottom plate. And inside there was another, what, 7 screws holding the main, the GBA board down and the mod kit board to the printed case. Those are all gone. And if you've ever watched Voltar's video, you'll know that this is very much going to please him. He threatened to not even do installations just because it was so time consuming. And I calmed him down. I said, you know what? Things are changing and it's going to be better, trust me. And I think he will agree. So the one-piece design, another reason we were able to eliminate screws is the plexiglass is now held in with magnets. There is 4 pin magnets here and 4 disc magnets that you will super glue to your plexi. And I will do another install video with all this. As you can see, this plexi is, it's a very cool fluorescent green, and I really messed it up. But it showed up. A lot of the surface scratches, like you can see, like right in here, those are already there because the Creative Makers is one that makes these, and he sent a couple of these to me that they weren't wrapped. This was the other one he sent. This is a fluorescent orange, and they ended up with a lot of surface scratches on them. So these are just going to be for me, or if I ever do sell them, I will have to explain why they're messed up. But you know, I clean these, and you know, even paper towel will scratch these. It's a little bit hard to keep them perfect forever, but I can tell you this was my first time super gluing the magnets on, and I was dealing with one of these little super glue tubes like this, like a little metal tube, and it's one of those where you gotta pierce the top. Well, I was just using the cap to pierce it, and then I twisted the body to do it, which automatically put squeeze pressure on it, and just a bunch was coming out. So I was like, oh, I'll just hurry up and dab some on there, and it was way too much, and it got all over the place, which you might be able to see around the sides of the magnet. So I'm guessing just the tiniest dollop is going to do that. But also, you know, these are magnets. They're both magnetic, the disc and the pin, so you have to get your orientation right. We contemplated having the 3D printer install the pin magnets ahead of time, but I don't think it's really worth paying him to do it. It's something everybody can do. It's easy installation work. But this whole magnetic plexiglass idea removes the need for the screws, but it also makes it really easy if you want to get in here and hook your main board up to the JTAG and reflash it. You don't have to disassemble the whole thing to do that, which is another huge positive. Yeah, another reason that the magnetic lid is going to be useful for the JTAG thing is we actually will have firmware for HDMI compliant, which is slightly overclocked, and then we will also have a firmware for the speedrunners who want original clock speed. What this means is the HDMI will not be compliant and will possibly not work on a bunch more TVs. So we're very limited on time, and we can't test that firmware on a bunch of TVs. So we're going to release it kind of as a beta, so that if you want to JTAG it to your board and give it a go, we'd love to hear from you what worked and what didn't. Another thing you'll notice is we've gotten rid of the logos. There was a few people that liked them. It seemed like there was an excess of people that didn't like them. So on the latest revision, there's actually a little bit of a recess right here, and we'll have a tiny logo inserted in there. I'm trying to find one here that I've actually put in. Yeah, here we go. So Woozle found these online and had his logo put on that, and it's really cool, and it was really cheap. It was just one of those kind of a silicone, I don't know how to explain it, just like a half sphere kind of situation. It's domed, is what I'm trying to say, domed. It looks pretty good. Our 3D print guy had actually made some from a lasered aluminum, and of course this is a different logo, but it's one of Woozle's logos, and you know, it came out okay. I think if we had made this a larger circle, that would look really good, but it was probably still more expensive than using these little domed stickers. Unsure if I think I will be installing these prior to shipping, so that's one more step I'll have to take. Okay, so you might be asking, what's this thing? This is another redesign. If you watched Voltar's video, you noticed that he had a lot of trouble with the 40 to 32 pin adapter PCB that we had sent him. And it's something I never wanted to begin with, and this is what Woozle finally got around to making. This is a custom FFC. So if your GBA motherboard is only 32 pin, you can plug it into this, and it converts it to the 40 pin, which the Consolizer board needs. Super easy. It is the same length as the 40 pin FFC we would have normally shipped with it. So there shouldn't be any issues there. I think it's pretty great myself. And this is a prototype FFC, actually. The one I think that we ended up buying in bulk, I think it's black, and I think it has a crosshatch ground pattern on it. This was just a prototype test run, and I have yet to get the FFCs in stock, which, by the way, the custom FFCs is another thing I've been waiting on to ship product. So next week I might start shipping LCD kits, but if I actually get the 4032 pin adapters in, then I can start shipping LCD orders that also had the adapter FFC. So, and then I will transition into shipping full cases as soon as I have, the next person on the list. As soon as I have their plastics, I will ship it. Yeah, speaking of the full cases, a lot of the review videos had commenters that were maybe didn't have all the information, but everybody seemed to want to focus on this $350 price point. I just wanted to address that That was my price. That was Game Tech's price for me to assemble one for you. And if you really really did out the numbers, all I'm really making out of that $350 is installation fee. Seriously, because if the kit costs 150 and you got to buy a GBA, with all the shipping and everything, you're probably already set about $200. And so let's say $150 is left of that. Well, right off the top, you got to take 4% for PayPal and credit card fees. And then for me, you got to take another 25-30% for income taxes. A lot of people don't realize that, but I pay income tax on everything I make because this is my business. So what's left is about what everybody's going to end up charging, maybe a little premium for Game Tech doing it, but that's about what installation fee is going to be. Like people like Voltar. Voltar might charge a little bit more than, say, some new guy that nobody's heard of. His work might be okay, but he might actually have to do it for less money to get more business. Whereas Voltar basically has to tell people that he can't do it because he's too busy, or start raising the prices so people look elsewhere for installation work. That's exactly what happened to me in the NESRGB days. I just quit doing it, and a lot of people came to me and said, "Well, would you do it if I paid you more?" And it just kept happening. So eventually, I just quit doing it altogether. But that's why the $350. That's for me to do the installation, and I do plan on doing more. As long as I can continue to source decent GBAs. So far, I've gotten all of mine from Japan, other than, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen. And most of them I bought not working. And like I said, it's either, very rarely is it actually the LCD, but it does happen that the LCD is bad. More than likely it's the power switch. A lot of battery corrosion, though. A lot of battery corrosion. It's something I need to stress to people trying to source a GBA. Look for the battery connectors and see if they're corroded. If they are, you might want to pass. I got burned. I'd say I've bought around 200 GBAs. I think my box has about 25 or 30 of them in it that have too much corrosion on them. And some of them, the corrosion doesn't show on the battery connectors, but on the inside, it's terrible. So, I'm trying to save them, see if I can start swapping parts and doing whatever to have more of them ready. But also, my experience was about 50% were 32 pin if it wasn't a Glacier. If it was a Glacier, I still found 32 pins in the Glacier, but it was like, maybe 5 out of 100 kind of a situation. It was very rare to find a 32 pin in a Glacier. However, the serial number, or not the serial number, but the number under the battery door trick has always worked. If it starts with a 0, it's probably a 40 pin. If it starts with a 1, probably a 32 pin. So far, that hasn't failed me one time. Every time I open one up, I look at those numbers and compare it, and every time the 0-1 thing works every single time. About the website, I've split the sale pages up finally. There was a lot of confusion about where people could buy the cheap version, which is the LCD version, is what I call it. So I have made a separate sale page just for the LCD version, which is $140, and a separate one just for the full case kit, which is $170. And then, of course, in a separate section of my website is the pre-modded consoles, and that's where I do the pre-order for the fully assembled by me for $350. There's been a few people that canceled because of the Pocket announcement. Well, I think we ended up with 16 people that canceled. And so I put up a quick sale for people that had signed up for Stock Alert. And I sold, I think it was 5 more LCD, 10 more full case kits, and 10 more fully assembled. And they sold out in 2 days. I didn't even have to tweet about it or nothing. So that's a lesson for everybody. If you want to know when stuff's going to be in stock, it doesn't do any good to email me. Just sign up for the Stock Alert. That's the best way to get it done. So that's it for the update. I apologize for how long it took and how long all of this is taking, but I promise you we are still on it, and we are doing our best to get these out as soon as we can. Thanks for watching.